Imagine this. Imagine I want to go from California to New York. You want to go from California to New York. We're not going to fly. No, we're going to drive. So first, how do we get there? Do I just get in my car and hope I find my way? Do I open a map? More than likely, I'm going to plan my route. I'm going to see which direction I need to go, how far can I drive in a day, where do I need to stop. Each of those points on my checklist are going to be really important for me having a successful trip and actually getting there. So why would you approach reading any other way? Think about reading as a journey and think about the article as your map, how you're going to get there. So this PowerPoint presentation is really about academic reading strategies. How are you going to be successful on your journey? The thing is that most academic articles are written with a very similar map to it. And so once you understand what the map is telling you, you can be really successful reading for any class. These are strategies that I have found successful throughout my reading career. In fact, these are strategies I wish someone would have told me when I started school, so that I would have spent a lot less time being confused. So in this presentation, we're going to examine the structure. We're going to talk about the levels of comprehension, selecting techniques, and then we're going to talk about how to practice. So active reading, what is active reading? This means that you ask questions and make comments as you read. The time that you spent in the prep stages really pays off in this, and it's also just like anything else, you practice, practice, practice. So how do you do active reading? First, let's envision how sometimes reading usually goes. How many of you sit down to read an article, you get through an entire page, maybe even 10, and by the end of those pages, all you know is either what you're having for dinner, what you're doing tomorrow, or anything but what you actually read. Ugh, me too. What's the point in that? Now I have to go back and reread those pages. So why would I spend double the time doing something I could just do really well once? And so these active reading strategies help you stay engaged with the article so that you're comprehending along the way, so that when you get to page 10, you don't have to go back and start at page 1. So the first thing is to preview the article structure and function. Okay, so we talked about who is the author, what do they do? Make sure that you have read the abstract. Read the headings. Think about headings as towns on your road trip from California to New York. It gives you an idea of where you're heading. So if you're reading an article and every time there's a heading, it brings up something about power or it brings something about ethics, that's probably going to be a key into really what you need to be focusing when you're reading each paragraph. Look for tables and figures, and also read the intro and the preview. So the first few lines are the topic sentences of each paragraph. The topic sentence tells you this is what's coming in this paragraph. Look at the function and the structure. At this point on your reading journey, you should be able to answer, what's the purpose, what are the main points, and how do these pieces fit together? This also helps you to preview the structure and learn better writing strategies. So by being better readers, we become better writers. By understanding the structure of an article, by understanding the structure of a sentence, the structure of a paragraph, you understand how to become a better and a faster reader. So how do you decide? Do you need to read further? Do you need to read all the sections? You're going to start to learn that based on the content of the article and the content of your courses. So let's say you don't necessarily have to read every word, but you need some skimming techniques. So the purpose of skimming is to move quickly through the material, only garnering broad comprehension of what's being discussed. So you can skim the first line. You can pick out bits and pieces. But in order to do this and to do this effectively, you have to pay attention. When I'm skimming, I will write notes on the side to jog my memory when I'm in class or when I'm in a meeting in order for me to be able to recall and to ask questions or participate in conversation. So although skimming may seem just reading all the headings, it's not. You have to actually understand maybe a few paragraphs or a few sentences of each in order to be able to efficiently and effectively participate in discussions. One strategy that I find very helpful is what we call tellbacks. Tellbacks is a way for you to stay engaged in the article. It also requires that I am actively thinking about what I'm reading as I'm reading it. This is something that at first requires a little bit more attention and time, but over time, it's so helpful and actually increases reading retention. So it helps comprehension, long-term recall. It also helps you identify when something you need to reread due to low comprehension. So what does this look like? Well, when you're reading, you need to pause and tell back to yourself what you just read. So I typically do this if this is something that I need to read in depth. I will do this either at the paragraph level or at the section level. And then what I do is I write in the margins or write on a piece of paper, however I'm taking notes, what is the most important points, like maybe a sentence or a couple of bullet points on what I just read in that area. So this was about this is the most important point. And again, depending upon the level of comprehension you need to have either at the paragraph or the section level. If you need to learn overt comprehension, so again, thinking about how in depth are you going to be reading, this is also going to build your comprehension skills. It serves as a comprehension aid. So a lot of times students tell me, I just didn't understand. Well, are you putting these building blocks in place to try to understand? Because maybe you're only getting it at a paragraph to paragraph level, but then once you take all of those notes from each paragraph at the end and put them together, do you start to see the big picture? So this is really a way to maintain a running commentary and summary at the end. And then this will also help you with class assignments. So if you're doing like reading reflections throughout the semester, or if at the end you have a term paper, you have an exam, this will help you more quickly go back to your notes so you're not spending all the time cramming at the end. So it's going to increase retention and actually increase your understanding of material throughout the way. Additional reading strategies. If I always read with a dictionary, if I don't understand a word, I look it up and then I write what the definition is in the article. Because a lot of times if I gloss over words, then I'm not understanding what the content actually is for that paragraph or for that section. And really, when you read with a dictionary, you're also increasing your vocabulary, which is really fun. Other strategies that people use are using a highlighter, and as I've already talked about, writing notes. I want to caution the use of a highlighter. Sometimes people think, well, I've highlighted it, therefore I understand. You have to have a systematic way of using a highlighter in order for it to actually work. Some studies suggest that using highlighters actually decreases retention. However, some other studies suggest that if you use a color coding system or a very purposeful highlighter strategy, you're able to retain information similar to the tellback. So let's practice. Grab one of your articles. Remember, start by looking at the author. What are they trying to tell you? Who is that author? What do you know about them? If you don't know anything, go to the abstract. Then read all of the first level headings, the second level headings, and then start on your reading journey. Remember, this is going to take a little bit more time at the beginning, but I promise it will increase retention and your ability to participate in class discussion and earn better grades based on recall in your class assignments and papers. All right, have a great time on your reading journey.